Halo semuanya, selamat datang di acara Perayaan Global Accessibility Awareness Day atau GAAD di tahun 2022. Tahun ini merupakan tahun ketiga Suara menyelenggarakan acara ini dari tahun 2020, dan saya Rahma, saya akan memoderatori seri yang sangat menarik hari ini. Untuk yang baru pertama kali bergabung, saya jelasin dikit dulu ya tentang GAD. Jadi GAD itu adalah sebuah gerakan yang diselenggarakan secara global untuk meningkatkan awareness atau kesadaran tentang aksesibilitas digital. Bahwasanya semua produk teknologi itu bisa dibuat nggak cuma ramah teman-teman disabilitas, tapi juga sebetulnya ramah untuk semua orang. Dan GAD selalu diselenggarakan di Kamis ketiga di bulan Mei setiap tahunnya, jadi tiap tahun. So kalau misalnya ada yang penasaran tentang apa aja sih accessibility itu, apa aja sih acaranya, siapa aja sih yang menyelenggarakan, kalian bisa cek langsung ke website GAD-nya langsung untuk datang 1, 2, 3, ya ada ratusan acara sih kalau kalian mau tahu, dan itu rata-rata sih gratis juga, so free knowledge, oke lah ya. Dan bersama saya telah hadir seorang pembicara yang jauh-jauh datang dari India, dari Microsoft India. Dan oleh karena itu sesi ini akan berlangsung dengan bahasa Inggris. Dan jadi nanti saya akan langsung ganti bahasanya ya selama sesi berlangsung sama beliau. Jika ada pertanyaan, langsung aja diketik di Slido yang linknya ada di sini, di bawah description dan juga di layar. Nanti kalau misalnya waktunya tidak cukup, kami akan coba rangkum pertanyaannya, dan sebisa mungkin kami akan coba jawab melalui kanal sosial media @suara_sid. So, aku akan transisi ke bahasa Inggris ya. Okay, welcome everyone to tonight Global Accessibility Awareness Day sessions. I'm Rahma and I will moderate today's sessions. And we are from Suara, so we're delighted to have wonderful speakers from India to share Microsoft accessibility and inclusion journey in India, learning and best practices. Now I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight's sessions. Kharisma Chhabra, hello. The lead strategic initiatives and accessibility, corporate, external, and legal affairs in Microsoft India.
Kharisma Chhabra is a management and business law graduate with over 16 years of industry experience across varied work streams like accessibility, sustainability, policy advocacy, government, legal affairs, business operations. Kharisma leads strategic initiatives in her current job at Microsoft India. She collaborates with stakeholders across industry, government, academia, etc. to foster adoption of digital inclusion practices across organizations. Kharisma is the core member of Disability Employee Group at Microsoft India, driving cultural and digital transformation initiative for Microsoft employees and connected communities. Kharisma's deep passion make her an evangelist of inclusive, accessibility, and sustainable technology. She is an advocate of inclusive design, as a core principle of technology development that impact lives of individuals, organizations, societies, and ecosystem at large. She is an active speaker at various public and private forums of digital inclusion, sustainability, and accessibility technologies. Kharisma also serves as a member on various accessibility inclusion committees with India leading industry associations like CII, FICCI, and co-chairs Broadband India Forum High-Level Committee on ICT for Inclusive Ability, People with Disability. Okay, hello Kharisma. Again, I would like to thank you so much for giving the time to share in Indonesia GADs this year. And I'm looking forward to learn this session as well as accessibility and inclusivity in Indonesia. And for everyone, again, if you have any question during this event, please put on the slide link available on the screen and also in the description below. If we still have time, we will answer it through Suara social media. So without further ado, I'll let Karishma, please.
Thank you, Rama. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here today. Thank you for having me. As you've already introduced, my name is Karishma Chhabra. I'm part of the public policy team here at Microsoft in India. I lead accessibility and strategic initiatives. Accessibility is core to our mission at Microsoft, and we live by this mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more every single day. It gives me great pleasure to be here with you all at the Indonesia's celebration of Global Accessibility Awareness Day by Swerise. And I'm honored, like I said. And today, what I'm going to talk in next 30 to 40 minutes is about our own journey, learnings on accessibility and inclusion in India, and how we can share those best practices with you all in Indonesia. So without further ado, I will quickly share my slide so that I can show you and speak. So it's a great pleasure to be with you all here today. And over the next 45 minutes, what I'm going to talk about is Microsoft's journey on accessibility and what we have been learning and doing in India, and how can we share that with you all who are listening to us today. So let me just kick it off. We all are living in a connected society, and pandemic has taught us how important and integral technology is to the way we live, we work, we educate ourselves, we skill ourselves. Technology plays a critical role. And when the technology is inclusive, it reaches out to a whole lot of people around the world and empower and impact their lives. But what does accessibility and inclusion actually means? For us, it means creating better experiences for everyone. We as a technology company live by a principle of inclusive by design. And when our technology reflects the diversity of everyone who uses it, it empowers everybody and connects everybody. And after the pandemic, in this hybrid world, as we all live in this era where we don't know who we are speaking to on the other side, whether a person is with disability or not, the technology should be able to help communicate and connect everyone uh, through through the digital means. And therefore, what we believe accessibility does is creates better experiences for everyone. And that's what we're going to share with you today. Why accessibility is important to us, and why do we talk about it? At Microsoft, we believe accessibility is a solvable design challenge that drives innovation. When inclusive design, which means that the environments and tools tend to be disabled and not people, and how can we really make our designs inclusive so we empower each and every person to use the technology the way they want to? And therefore, that becomes imperative, and that is a design principle when we design a technology or a solution which has to be accessible for everyone. Unconscious bias is an important aspect because we all live with unconscious biases. Sometimes they're inherited, they're cultural or location based, or just by the way we live, we inherit those unconscious biases. We have to be intentional in including so that we make sure there is no exclusion that happens in our decision making. And when we include people with disabilities or diverse backgrounds from the very beginning without any biases in mind, we tend to create better technology, we tend to include more people and solve more challenges. Last but not least, I think the concept of accessibility for few and usability for many is a great one, because if you look at how technology is playing a role around the world today, it is not just for people with disabilities. For example, voice assistants that we use today is actually benefiting a much larger audience than just people with disabilities. So a technology or a solution that you create for a community actually ends up benefiting much larger community. Why we believe in accessibility at Microsoft? Because we design with inclusion in mind. Our core principle of designing a technology or a solution is being inclusive. So when the design meets intentionality, it means that we are intentional about making technology inclusive and including people with disabilities and people with diverse backgrounds into our culture, our product life cycle, development, we create better innovation. And like our CEO Satya says, technology is the only malleable thing humans have created, and we can create economic prosperity. And that's what the aim is. Let me quickly walk you through our journey at Microsoft, how it has been when we talk about accessibility. We started with our commitment on accessibility back in early 90s, and it runs both the culture and the technical side of things run parallelly. Because unless we have that culture of empathy and inclusion, it is very difficult to innovate and bring the technology that people can be proud about. So our commitment to accessibility was announced by Bill Gates in 1997. We moved on to creating disability employee resource groups across the world. This is essentially a group of people who come together and work for the benefit of persons with disabilities, whether it's employment, hiring, growth issues, development issues within the organization, helping with technical capabilities, or even supporting larger communities outside of Microsoft. So this core group is a bunch of passionate people who, by the way, don't do accessibility as a day job, but are passionate about creating impact in lives of persons with disabilities. And they form this group and work as volunteers to create that impact. And I'm very proud to say that in India, we had the second largest employee resource group on disability outside of the United States, which shows how committed and how much passion a lot of our employees carry for persons with disabilities. We had a first Global Ability Summit in 2011. In fact, just yesterday, we concluded our 12th Worldwide Ability Summit, which essentially is a forum, a group where people from around the world, our employees, customers, partners, ecosystem at large comes together and really shares best practices, talks about why digital accessibility is important and the impact that we've been creating as organizations and societies at large. Last but not least, we reaffirmed our position, our commitment on accessibility with a new company mission that was announced in 2005, which is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And accessibility is built into this mission because when we say every person and every organization, we cannot leave anyone behind. And our technical journey has been so far amazing, great, other than the solutions and products that we've come out with. We've also created a solution, a disability answer desk, where we actually, and it is present in over 16 countries around the world, where we are supporting persons with disabilities for any technical help, any issues, any questions, and most importantly, taking feedback from the user experiences so that we can bring in those experiences into our products and services. And thereon, we took a completely new cultural approach in 2016 after our mission was announced, and there's no looking back. But one important thing that we've learned in our journey across these years is that accessibility is built in and not bolted on, which really means is the core of our working on accessibility is inclusive, right from the technical side of product development. Our inclusion is built into our development cycle. And if you look at our people and culture, inclusion and accessibility is part of our DNA. There is a lot of investment. I talked about the employee resource groups. We have we run hackathons within the organization. And over the years, accessibility-led solutions have almost doubled and tripled from where we started because of the sheer passion that people bring to hack for accessibility and come out with more digital solutions that can empower persons with disabilities and communities at large. Like I said, our mission is a very bold and a strong statement, and we live by it each and every day, and accessibility and inclusion is built into it. We also firmly believe that accessibility is a responsibility and an opportunity. When we say accessibility is a responsibility, over 1 billion+ people around the world are people with disabilities, and many of whom need assistive technology. The data suggests only 1 in 10 has access to the products they need. And the unemployment rate is twice as compared to someone with no or limited disability. But I think the pertinent point here is that disability can affect any of us at any point in time. In fact, it will, because as we age, the aging population, the issues that we face, whether it is through vision or physical disability or hearing, everybody gets impacted. It is just that a certain section of people, it gets to them earlier than the others. Disability could be permanent, temporary, like someone with an injured arm, or situational, like a new parent. I experienced that a few years ago with my daughter when she was born. As a little baby, when I would hold her in my hands, and as a professional, I am equally committed to my work. So technology was the only way I could navigate. I could attend to my work as well as have my daughter and give her enough attention, because I had accessible tools right in front of me, whether it was creating a document through dictation or using a voice assistance to give calls to people, or just simply reading captions when the presentations are going. So there are many ways in which we can leverage technology the way we want, and that's what the aim is here when we talk about responsibility. We also believe that accessibility is an opportunity. Inclusive organizations outperform their peers, and there are several studies to suggest that, including the Accenture study on disability inclusion advantage, which suggests that organizations who are invested in inclusion and diversity, they have higher revenue growth, higher net income, and the better performance on economic profit margin. In fact, as we look at the study by Forbes, which says millennials, about 70%, 75% of global workforce will be millennials by 2025, and they would want to choose employers who reflect their value. And diversity and inclusion is top of mind for everyone today. At Microsoft, how we live accessibility and how it is embedded into our DNA is through 4-pronged approach that we take. Accessibility is built into our culture. Systems, when we say systematic inclusion from start to finish, whether it is in our hiring, in our products, services, people, we make systematic inclusion investment. As I said before, when we talk about our technology, accessibility is built in and not bolted on. Last but not least, we can only innovate better when we have people with disabilities working alongside us, whether it is feedback through our disability answer desk or including people with disabilities to hack or be a part of our growth journey. That's where we innovate better for our future and change what's possible for persons with disabilities. One important thing that when we talk about the opportunity, what we as an organization have started doing is to manage accessibility like a business. We created our own Microsoft Accessibility Evolution model after actually referring and studying through several maturity models, and some of them, like I mentioned on the slide here, Ken Mellon capability model and level access digital accessibility maturity model. We came up with our own Microsoft Accessibility Evolution model, which has 5 levels. And in no particular order, it does have 8 parameters. But essentially what an evolution model does is it helps us systematically measure progress and targets that you've put ourselves for accessibility, which means that it holds us true to our commitment and makes us more transparent in our journey of what we have set for ourselves, the targets that we've set, and where we are in terms of achieving those. We are actually working with a lot of our customers and partners to help them in their accessibility journey. And this evolution model has three overarching themes. And then underneath it has about 8 these characteristics or criterias, but in no particular order, depending on the journey of the organization. It could start at any point in time. If somebody is just getting into accessibility, uh, definitely there's an investment for product, for people and culture that's required, the vision, strategy, engagement. How does companies see accessibility as part of their culture? What are the investment in terms of right people, tools, processes, trainings that are important to be made? If an organization has already covered the cultural aspect and they're now sort of trying to build momentum, it requires standards, because when we talk about digital accessibility or even physical, everything requires standards. So just making sure that the right standards, both for physical and digital, that the organization is following. It has its procurement practices, training, support, and tools are put into system. And the last and the final thematic or the stage is becoming innovators in accessibility. When actually accessibility becomes a part of the product development lifecycle, it's embedded into the sales, marketing, and communication, is when that journey of innovators start. But by no means we say that this is the journey is complete by just achieving these three. We at Microsoft are learning every day. And the only intention is to keep sharing what we are learning as we go along in this journey. Let me quickly touch upon accessibility solutions, because we all understand there's physical accessibility and digital accessibility, but what really it means when we say digital accessibility. So how we've defined and made it simple for people to understand is that we've divided the digital accessibility into 3 key subjects: tools, content, and applications. When we say tools, it's about empowering the digital experience for employees, customers, partners, and everyone who uses technology. And when we talk about our own products, we have Windows and Office that is powering. Those are the tools that are powering and empowering people with disabilities and everyone. When we talk about content, it's about making content and communication more inclusive and accessible. We have our mobile apps, solutions, and Teams platform, which is one of the most collaborative and inclusive platform today to create communication and share, and in this hybrid era, be connected to each other, location agnostic. Last but not least, the third accessibility subject is applications. It's universal applications. How do we embed accessibility into the development lifecycle? How do we make it easy for developers or testers? So there's something that we have called Accessibility Insight, which is a self-audit tool available for Windows and Edge, where people can actually go and test their websites to see where there are issues in accessibility, and it also provides fixes to help them fix it. And then we have our Azure, which is our cloud services, cognitive services, which are available on the cloud and even the mobile applications. So this is how we sort of just made the understanding of digital accessibility simpler for someone who's just trying to understand what it means. Like I said, accessibility benefits everyone, from specific needs to usages for all. When we keep people in disabilities in mind and innovate, we actually innovate for society at large. Just by the way of examples, look at automated doors or captions that we use today, the voice recognition. All of these features by no means are only limited to persons with disabilities. We all are living in a hybrid world and we all need these tools. I give you an example, my own example, how my journey when my daughter was born has been. Those few months initially, were so helpful because technology was there helping me out. And similarly, when we have easy access to technology and we have the opportunity to use it the way we want to, I think it definitely creates better user experiences and gives a lot of satisfaction to some of us here who are actually striving and taking that feedback and working towards building better technology. We all know artificial intelligence plays a big role, and as we are rapidly moving towards the emerging tech and the way it is coming, we understand AI amplifies human capability, whether it's image recognition, speech, natural language interaction. All of this is powered by AI. The image capture to sound, we and these are just few examples, and there are many more when we talk about artificial intelligence. It helps persons with visual disabilities, hearing, or even the language barriers. Artificial intelligence has power today to really bridge those barriers and gap and actually bridge that disability divide which exists in societies today. And at Microsoft, that's also one of a goal that we have. In fact, we have doubled down on our commitment on accessibility for next 5 years by really making a commitment that how do we work towards bridging the disability divide? And that's through skilling, through affordable technology, to creating technology access for everyone. I briefly talked about the disability answer desk earlier, but this actually extends our responsibility beyond just creating those products and services and shipping them out of the door. The intent here is that we take feedback, we improve on our technology, and we continue to empower our customers. And today we have disability answer desks in two forms. One is a consumer disability answer desk, which is available in 16 markets in multiple languages. And we have an enterprise disability answer desk, which actually helps organizations who are on their journey of accessibility and using technology to empower their people with disabilities. How can we be of support to them and even take some first-hand feedback and improve? We continue to create excitement about building accessible experiences, whether it is through our own internal trainings at Microsoft or extending that to the organizations and ecosystem at large. So we have two uh, type of courses which are available for people outside Microsoft to leverage and understand and learn what accessibility means. How can they actually start to create those experiences for their organizations? So we have something called Accessibility Fundamentals Training Series, which is available. And then for the educators, people who are actually building or supporting children with disabilities to be more inclusive, and how can they meet the needs for children with disabilities and allow them to create a more personalized learning environment and experience, give them the experience, is a Microsoft Educator Community Learner program that we have. So these are available for communities outside of Microsoft. And within Microsoft, we have something called an Accessibility in Action badge. While we continue to talk about accessibility outside, there is a continuous, we give continuous importance to accessibility internally, because as our new employees join and even the ones who are already here should continue to learn about what our practices have been, how we continue to innovate and invest in this important topic. While doing all of this that I've just talked about, our journey in India on accessibility from an external stakeholder perspective has also been very exciting over the last few years. We've deeply invested into the communities, being a thought leader on accessibility, and really building those strategic partnerships, which has helped us in the conversations with government, in the conversation with our industry associations, partners, etc. What we are really doing here is being a thought leader on accessibility and continue that position by sharing best practices like I'm doing today. We have, like I said, that we want to continue to share what we learn and continue to learn from the larger experiences that people have all around. Collaboration and partnerships to drive the messaging around inclusion is very, very important. This has been our learning that when we collaborate with larger industry associations or partners, like you have Swarais in Indonesia, there are many associations and civil society partners in India that we work with, so that we continuously take that message out to the ecosystem and help them evolve and invest in journey of accessibility. Accessibility in education is very important. We all understand the importance of being in the hybrid world today that we all are. Post pandemic, how things have changed for everybody. And education and skilling become central to the future of the students and the kids who are studying today. And it is important, it's an onus on us to include students with disabilities and give them the same experience that everyone else has. So what we try to do is work with educator communities, partners, to continue and help them evolve in their curriculum and making future of classrooms more accessible. The other focus area for us in India has been strategic partnerships to build capacity and capability and outreach to the different organizations and stakeholders who are important in this journey. Because when we say inclusion, by no means we can do this alone. When we talk about bridging the disability divide, everybody has different strengths. There are different organizations that bring in different strengths. So it's important that we partner with them to create that awareness, to build that capability in the communities, and to partner with governments, because governments play a very important role when it comes to whether it is through regulations or through sharing their own best practices. And because government is also, when we look at the technology, government is the largest tech procurer. So when they talk about technology being accessible and they use technology which is accessible, the message that goes out to the larger citizens of the country definitely is something that inclusion and accessibility is important. So therefore, partnerships with government. So what we've done in the recent past is we've had some great partnerships with government organization, and one of them was to foster local innovation. Uh, Startups are booming all around the world, and in India also we have many startups who are now investing in accessible technology. And again, that shows the commitment of the country towards making accessibility mainstream. So we launched this challenge in partnership with the nodal ministry in India, which is the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and some other stakeholders within the government was also a part of that challenge, where we actually created a challenge for uh, the entrepreneurs, whether it's in the early stage or slightly matured individuals or educational institutions, who could innovate for accessibility, come up with solutions which are easy to use and scalable, so that we can also create some interesting products and solutions which can actually help cater the country and even scale outside of India. So we had some wonderful innovations coming out of that project, and some 11 winners, and out of which 8 are already in market, and they're doing well. Our partnerships with NGOs and communities to drive digital skills, employability continues, because that is a very, very important area when we talk about inclusion and accessibility. We continue to build those skills with people, and who better than the civil society and communities to partner there. We also partner with industry bodies like CII, FICCI. There's some great industry bodies in India to create workplace inclusion champions, because that is another space where we can actually go and talk about and actually create champions within the organizations who are passionate about accessibility, who can take inclusion to the next level. And last but not least, I think it is very, very important when we talk about digital accessibility to have the right standards. And India has been on this journey of getting the standards for us for over last 4 years. And I'm very, very happy and proud to tell you that we've just announced standards for India very, very recently, just a month back. I've been on this partnership that we've had with government. Microsoft is represented on the committee of Ministry of IT. There's a body called CDAC, which was actually the body which was creating these standards. So we've been very closely working with them and been on the expert committee to advise how these standards are important. And India has adopted standards which are the most harmonized European standards. And now we have one for India. Standards really help and open the path for greater innovation in the country. And that's why it's very, very important. We've been working on these efforts to advocate. We continue to do that through white papers, through webinars, through workshops to talk about the use of accessible technology and need for standards. And we continue to do so because the next goal that we have is to have the procurement policy in the country, which talks about procuring using accessible technology. Because I think once that comes in, the entire country starts to benefit from accessible technology. So we are on this journey. We continue to learn and continue to create that impact in lives of persons with disabilities in India and beyond. And today, as I speak here, I just want to leave you all with one message. As you think of becoming an innovator in accessibility, take the learnings forward, whether you're starting your journey or somewhere in the middle of it. Take the learnings, share your best practices with us, be intentional about including persons with disabilities, and create a more inclusive and accessible world. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to interact with you today.
Thank you, Karishma, for the very, very insightful presentations. Wow, okay. Before we start question and answer sessions, I would like to highlight some points here because I really like when you said accessibility as innovations and as an opportunity, because many times I heard that, especially in the US, accessibility more likely as a compliance, or in other part of the world, including Indonesia, accessibility or disability topic is about charity and social issue. And I think this is important because now we full with tech startups, and also when you say the AI is bridging the gap, the innovations, because when I say to many technology fellows, they thought like, well, accessibility is just a checklist instead of an innovation. Do you have any comment for that, for those who think like, well, accessibility is not priority, it's not, it's pretty much only a checklist instead of innovation? Do you have any words on that?
Yeah, very interesting and a very important point that you bring up, Rama, because it's not easy for anyone. Even when we started out on our journey in India, same issues, same questions. Even in today's time, when we go and talk to people who still don't understand, because like I said, we continue to create that awareness. For some who don't understand what accessibility inclusion can do, that is a very obvious question to come. And people do think it as a checklist. So that's why we actually started to work with the civil society, startups, and the other to push the narrative to make everybody understand that CSR or philanthropies is only one part of accessibility. We have to move the needle beyond that. And that's why we call it an opportunity. And that's the reason we as an organization are invested in creating the evolution model. Because I was talking about the two aspects, the cultural and technical. Even if an organization doesn't immediately invest in technical side of things, it's important to get started with the culture, because culture, I'm sure a lot of people would have heard this, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's a huge statement that was made by Peter Drucker. And that's true, because when you have a culture of inclusion, and empathy, you actually create better experiences for people. And that's what we believe in. That's what we drive. And that's the way we even interact and tell our customers and partners. And the other important aspect to it is the studies that have suggested organizations who are invested in inclusion actually outperform their peers. So it's a data, it's statistics. Everybody in today's world believes data. Data suggests that the organization who are invested in inclusion and accessibility, they actually do better financially. So what more can it tell us if these numbers are telling us that organizations who have the culture of inclusion, are invested in diversity and inclusion, really outperform their peers financially? Their revenue growth is better than the others. You attract better talent. That's, I mean, today there's people are looking for great talent all around the world. And as we get more and more into hybrid world, the location agnostic talent can be brought into the company from anywhere. And that's where accessibility becomes important. And that's why we say that it's not just for people with disability. It takes a little bit of time to understand that aspect, that we are not only solving for people with disabilities here. When we say inclusive design, it means we talk about benefiting much larger audience. I don't know if that addresses your question, but I'm happy to expand more.
Yeah, I mean that since especially since the pandemic, people also realize that actually work from home is a form of accessibility, right? Because especially in Indonesia, we don't have that infrastructure evenly for people with disability, and remote working becoming a very prominent solutions to address the employee with the employer in the various places in Indonesia. That's also the concern that we bring through Suarais, providing a remote-based job opportunity for people with disability, especially visually impaired people. Also, I think we still have time. One last question then, because you mentioned about adopting international standard to be national standard. Why do you think this national standard is really important compared to just, okay, let's say we follow the tag. Why should the India or Indonesia has our own standard to hold on and adopting from the international one?
So international standards, which is so I don't know if you're aware about Section 508 in the US. Then there is this EN 301549, which is the most harmonized and updated one after Section 508 in the US. And why we say that's important, because the standards not only just helps us with digital accessibility in websites, but it's across services, applications, hardware, software. So it actually helps us understand what is the benchmark that we're looking at when we talk about innovating for accessibility. And when we say adopting, so I did mention about a journey with the government and being Microsoft being a representative on this expert committee. And the reason why we had that expert committee in first place was to see how can we marry the two? Because every country, every region will have some different issues, while at large, the challenges for persons with disabilities remain the same. But still, the location, the culture, the place we are in does differentiate and bring in some different elements. So this expert committee was actually formed to see what are those differences in India. For example, the language is one piece which was not a main part of the standards in the European standards, but we made it for India. So there is also a scope to customize, but at the same time, when we say adoption, because they're most harmonized, in that case, what you can do is the technology becomes, there's interoperability. So any technology that somebody is creating in other part of the world can easily be adopted and used in India or say other parts, if we use the same standards. But if we try to reinvent the wheel and every time do different things, then what we are doing is we are only restricting ourselves to that particular region, which is not which is not the idea here, because we are one world. We want to be interoperable. We want to interact with each other. And when we talk about accessibility, and you've also mentioned that location doesn't really matter. So why should technology be restricted to an area? And that's why international standards make a lot of sense.
Okay. Wow. That's language thing is also important, because in Indonesia, I think many people speak at least 3 language. So I guess that's also one of important considerations when we don't have yet the national standard. Hopefully soon.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully after this. And hopefully your session becoming one of the reference high government. So please watch this. Okay, I guess we have been hearing a lot of wonderful journey from Karishma stories in Microsoft and India. Hopefully all the people who watch these sessions can learn many things, take away from whatever you need from the sessions, because as Karishma said before, we need best practice, especially those who just start into this field. Instead of trial and error, and maybe they will be like a bit traumatized with the progress. Just take the best practice, at least start, as you said. And do you have any last words, especially for the technology and in digital industry in Indonesia, before we end these sessions?
Absolutely. I would just say that listen to what Rama said. I think it's important to start your journey, and that's what matters. I think just acknowledging and being intentional about starting it is the right point, because once you start, then there's no looking back. It is that ocean that will actually keep taking you deep inside, because there's so much to learn, there's so much to create and impact. And especially when you're in the field of technology, I think this is something that you love to innovate on. And I say it from experience, because we've seen, like I said, in Microsoft, people are in love with creating technology that is accessible. So it automatically happens. So I would just say that please start your journey today. There's a lot of tons of material. In fact, we have our YouTube MS Enable, and I can, Rama, send it to you later if you want to circulate in the community. There's a lot of learning videos that we at Microsoft have on YouTube, which can be people, if they want to learn how to use technology, and even just simply how they want to start out their journey. There's a ton of material there. So there is no dearth of information. It's just being aware and being conscious and being intentional. Because when you intentionally include, you don't unintentionally exclude. So I'll just leave it that.
Wow. Yeah. Once you gone into accessibility, you can stop. Just like us, we just can't stop. Okay, thank you once again, Karishma, for sparing and spending your time to share the best practice. Hopefully, we can all learn from that. Dan buat teman-teman yang mungkin masih punya pertanyaan, bolehlah tetap ditaruh di Slido-nya aja. Nanti kita coba dikirim ke Bu Karishma, biar siapa tahu bisa dijawab ya. Dan I would like also to thank you for our community partners. And in Suarez, this year's Global Accessibility Awareness Day 2022, we have more talk show ahead. So please check on our website or our social media at Suarez ID, and also in locket.com. And hopefully all the session is fruitful for your heart, for your brain, and for our futures. And thank you again, Karishma, and thank you for
Thank you. Thank
everyone.
you for having
See
me.
you in next sessions. Bye-bye.